Hi, it's Wednesday. That means it's time for another video edition of Widower Wednesday. I'm Abel Keogh, author of the book Dating a Widower, and today we're going to discuss a widower's grief journey and what, if anything, you can do to help him move forward and open his heart to you. The inspiration for this video was an email I received a couple days ago. I've received many similar emails like it over the years, and the email goes something like this. It says, "Hey Abel, I've met this wonderful guy. He's a widower. They tell me, this is how long he's been widowed. This is how his wife died. We've been dating for so many months." And I'm falling in love with him, and I can see a future with him. But my worry is that he's still grieving and maybe not moving on. And the question inevitably comes up: what can I do to help him move forward? What can I do to help him open his heart? What can I do to help him through this grief journey? And so that's the question we're going to talk about today. What can, if anything, you can do to help a widower? And so just to be very blunt and honest, there's nothing that you can do to help a widower move forward or move on. The grief journey that someone has to do is something that he or she has to do alone, and it's not something that you or anybody else can accompany them on. There's nothing that you can do or say that'll make things better. Even though I wish there was. I wish I could respond to these emails and say, "Oh, just do this. Do this act of service, do this act of love," or I could go to them and say, "Just say this thing," and it would make things better and make things work. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Part of the reason is that we're all on different grief paths. We all lose our spouses in different ways. We're all at different life stages. Some of us have kids, some of us don't. We're different ages. We have different backgrounds, different cultures, different concerns, and so how one processes and deals with grief is completely. It's just different for the individual. Now, what I want to do, I'm not saying that there's nothing you can do. I'll get towards the end of this video, I'll actually talk about, there are some things that you kind of can do that can help if the widower's, if he really can, get over his grief. I'll get to that towards the end. But to illustrate this point of it's something that, each grief journey is unique and it's something that people have to do alone. I'm going to tell you 3 things that I had to do before I could fully open my heart to Juliana. And so as I'm talking about these, as I list these 3 things, I want you to ask yourself a question. Ask yourself what, if anything, Juliana could have done to help me with these 3 things that I had to overcome. And for those who are new and don't know, Juliana is my wife. We started dating about 5 months after my late wife died. We were married, I guess maybe, I'm going to do the math here, maybe 10 months after we started dating, we got married. We've been married for 16 years. Life is good. But there's 3 things. But again, when I was dating Julie, I had 3 issues I had to overcome, and I had not overcome any of these issues when we started dating. So here they are, in no particular order. So my grief journey involved 3 things. The first one is I had to forgive my late wife for taking her own life. So ask yourself, how could Julie have helped me forgive my late wife? The second thing I had to do is I had to stop blaming my late wife for our daughter's death 9 days later. My wife was 7 months pregnant when she took her own life. The emergency people that arrived, they were able to save the baby, so to speak. But Hope, my daughter, I took her off life support 9 days later, and I blamed my late wife for that. So again, how could Julie have helped me? With that, and I was really angry. By the way, there's lots of anger in there, so I guess you could say blaming my late wife came with lots of anger. So there's lots of anger issues I had to overcome. The third one is I had to forgive myself for not listening to the promptings that might have saved my late wife's life. Again, I had some feelings and lots of regrets, things I should have done and probably could have done, and maybe, my whole life would have been different had I followed those. And lots of guilt and beating myself up over the fact that I did not do that. Now, if you want the details on this forgiveness and, my late wife's death and, these promptings, they're all detailed in the book Room for Two. You can go get it and get those details. This isn't the place to go into those, but I'm just pointing out those are the 3 issues that I really had to deal with in my grief journey, and they're really not issues that Julie could have helped me with. These are all things that I had to overcome on my own. There's nothing Julie could have done or said to make me forgive my late wife, or to maybe get over the anger at towards her, or towards my late wife about our daughter's death, or there's nothing she could have said that would have made me forgive myself. Those are all internal things, and that's really, when you're, and I get it that grief is more complicated than just three big things, but I'm just talking about three big issues I had to overcome, and once I was able to overcome these, I was really able to kind of push my way through grief. But your widower probably has issues that he's dealing with too. It could be maybe there's some guilt or regret about the relationship. Maybe he feels guilty. That he, does he have regrets? Maybe he wasn't the best husband or the best father, or maybe he felt like he could have done something that could have prevented her death. Could be regret. Maybe he regrets the way that he treated his late wife. There's lots of issues going on there. Maybe he's battling depression. Maybe, his late wife's death has put him into a tailspin. There's different issues that he's going to be dealing with, and I guess just ask yourself openly and honestly, well, what can you do to help the widower push through these? And again, I wish I could say yes. If you say this or do this, ta-da, he's better, but there's not. And you've got to understand that widowers can't fully open their hearts until they've made peace with the past and managed most of their grief. Now, that doesn't mean when you start dating that the widower has to be 100% or even 90% better. When Julie and I started dating, I hadn't worked through any of those three issues. In fact, I don't think I'd really addressed a lot of those issues. I was kind of living in denial on a lot of them. If you openly talk to Julie about it, she'll even tell you that at least on the anger issue, I was still angry at the late wife even a couple of years after we were married. Now, it wasn't the same intense everyday anger that I had when we first started dating, but there were little flashes of anger here or there that probably went on for 2 or 3 years after we were married. But the point is when we were married, I think I was 90% over it. I had forgiven her and I had forgiven myself. And honestly, as much as, and it wasn't until I really reached that point that I could really open my heart to Julie and she felt comfortable marrying me. And I don't want to make it sound like it's just something that I worked on overnight, and just like, hey, I woke up one morning and hey, everything's good. It was a process, but Juliana saw progress, right? She saw me making progress on this, and that's why she kind of stuck with it. So, understand that a widower, he won't be able to fully open his heart until he's really worked through most of his grief and really kind of addressed some of the big issues that he's dealing with. So the question was, well, what can I do? What did Julie do? Obviously something happened because you worked through it. You had issues. What did Julie do, or what was going on there? And really, Julie didn't do anything. All Julie was is she was Julie, and that was motivation enough for me to want to move forward on this. I realized on our second date that Julie was someone I could happily spend the rest of my life with. I couldn't quantify and tell you exactly how I knew it. It was just this gut feeling. I was like, oh my gosh, here's this wonderful woman. If I can find some way to make this work, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with her, and I'm going to be happy doing it. So Julie, again, she didn't say or do anything. She was just herself, right? She was her wonderful self. But she was the motivation for me to move forward and get over my guilt or depression. She was the reason I decided to actually take some of these issues on, the forgiveness, the anger, the blame, things like that. She was the reason I decided to tackle those issues, because I realized that if there was any chance of having any kind of relationship with her, at least a serious one, I had to really work through these issues. She was the reason that I reached the point where I wanted to open my heart. But again, she didn't do anything. She was the motivation of the reason, but there was nothing she did or said other than being herself that made me want to do it. And that's all you can do. All you can do is be yourself. Be the most best, wonderful person you can be. And that has to be enough for the widower to have the reason and motivation for him to kind of address these issues and move on. And again, I don't mean that it's that it's smooth sailing and it all just works out in the end. In the end, it's up to the widower to decide if he loves you enough to work through these issues. And you got to understand that not all widowers are ready to open their heart. A lot of them, you can go back through a lot of my videos. A lot of widowers, they just want someone to kind of fill the void. They're not looking to open their heart. But if he loves you enough, he will work through these issues. And again, it's not going to happen overnight, but you'll see slow and steady progress. Again, by the time Julie and I were married, I had forgiven my late wife. I had forgiven myself. There were still anger issues, again, little flares of anger, but I'd say I was 90% over it. And, I had to kind of work through the rest of that 10%. But it was enough that Julie said, okay, we've made enough progress where I feel comfortable tying the knot with you and spending the rest of my life. And we've been married for 16 years now, and things have been good. And so the anger, I don't think I've been angry, and probably going back 12 or 13 years, I don't think I've had any anger. Eventually, it just kind of went away. But my thing is if for some reason the widower can't work through it, right? If you're not the reason or motivation enough for him to work through the issues that he's dealing with on this grief journey, don't take it personally. Again, this isn't, it isn't because of you, or it isn't, again, anything you did or said that caused him to do it. He's just not to a point where he can do it. So don't stay in a relationship with a widower who's dealing with his issues and you aren't a good enough reason to do it. Life's too short for that. It's not good for you, and it's not good for him to be in these kind of relationships where he's not making progress and he's not working forward to opening his heart to you. And honestly, the worst thing you can do, I get this all the time. People say, well, if I'm just more patient, or how long does it take? Again, there's no time frame on this, but I mean, if you've been with a widower over a year and he's still dealing with these issues and you don't see progress, it's not going to get any better. It's just not. And I wish I could put some put a more positive a spin on that, but a widower will get over his grief when he's motivated and has enough reason to do it. And if you're not enough of a reason for it, again, don't take it personally. But you got to do what's good for you and get out of that. But again, this grief journey, it's something that widowers have got to do alone. Again, be the motivation, but widowers are the ones that have to go through it and make it work. And they have to have enough reason and motivation to do it. I'm Abel Keogh, author of the book Dating a Widower. Comment, subscribe. Let me know how things are going with your widower, the issues that you're dealing with. And if you're going through a similar issue and just want to talk to someone about it, I know relationships are complicated and nuanced. You can schedule a coaching session at my website, abelkeogh.com. That's ABELKEOGH.com. Schedule a coaching session there. I'm Abel Keogh, and I will see you next Wednesday.